The blazing lights of the Fox News studio set the stage for one of cable news' most explosive moments. Greg Gutfeld sat behind his desk, smirking, ready to roast a young Republican rising star. But what happened next left him speechless and shifted America's political discourse forever. Karoline Leavitt, a fierce new conservative voice, walked onto the Gutfeld Show expecting tough questions about her America First policies. What she didn't expect was Greg crossing a line that ignited a social media firestorm and forced the nation to rethink respect in politics. You know what Gutfeld said with that trademark condescending tone? If you don't like how we do things in America, maybe you should go back to where you came from. The studio fell dead silent. The camera caught Levitt's face, not shocked, not angry, but sharp and calculating. She'd been preparing for this moment her entire career. What followed wasn't just a comeback, it was a masterclass in turning an attack into a knockout. Before we break down how Levit completely dismantled Gutfeld's cheap shot, hit subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. You'll want to see this. The tension in Studio B was palpable. Gutfeld, Fox News' late-night provocateur, had made a career out of edgy one-liners and targeting establishment politicians. At 59, he thought he'd seen it all. Across from him sat Karoline Leavitt, 26 years old, from New Hampshire, and rapidly rising through conservative ranks with her unapologetic America First stance. This wasn't supposed to be hostile. Leavitt was invited to discuss cutting government waste and championing American workers. But Gutfeld had other plans. The first 10 minutes were peppered with jokes about young politicians, questioning if Levit really understood true conservatism. Then came the breaking point. Levit pushed back on Gutfeld, calling her policies too extreme. That's when he dropped the line that would define them both. If you don't like how we do things in America, maybe you should go back to where you came from. The words hung in the air like poison. The audience, usually quick to laugh at Gutfeld's jabs, sat stunned. Regular panelists looked uneasy. But Levit? She just smiled. That smile was the first warning Gutfeld ignored. He'd just made a catastrophic mistake. "Mr. Gutfeld," she said, calm and clear, "I think you just gave me the perfect opportunity to teach you and your viewers something important." The camera zoomed in on her confident eyes. This wasn't damage control. It was a calculated strike. Gutfeld tried to backpedal. "I mean, if you're unhappy with American policies..." Levitt raised her hand, commanding silence. "No, Mr. Gutfeld, you said what you said, and now I'm going to respond." She pulled a folded piece of paper from her blazer. The studio leaned in. "I actually did some homework before coming on your show," she continued. "And I found something interesting about where people should go back to." Gutfeld's smirk faded, replaced by dawning panic. Clips of his "go back" comment were already blazing across Twitter. Levitt unfolded the paper slowly, each movement deliberate. "You told me to go back to where I came from. Well, I'm from New Hampshire, born and raised in a family that served this country for generations. But I'm curious about your background." She looked directly into the camera, speaking to millions. "According to public records, your family immigrated here just 2 generations ago. So if we're playing the go back where you came from game, maybe we should start there." The studio erupted, not in laughter, but in shocked gasps and murmurs. Gutfeld's face drained from pink to red. He tried to interrupt, but Levitt was on fire. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a complete reversal of power that political commentators would analyze for months. To understand why, you have to know who these two represent. Gutfeld, 59, Fox. News's chief provocateur, built his brand mixing conservative points with edgy humor, often skirting the line of what's acceptable. His show was a ratings powerhouse, beating traditional late-night hosts among key demographics. He represented the old guard of conservative media, comfortable with establishment politics and unafraid to attack challengers. His fans loved his authenticity and fearlessness. But critics argued his humor often attacked the very people who should be allies, and that his platform enabled the status quo many conservatives wanted to change. His "Go back where you came" from line exposed just how out of touch he'd become with a new generation. Karoline Leavitt was everything the old guard feared. At 26, unapologetically America first and prepared. She'd clawed her way up from grassroots campaigns, battling establishment insiders who dismissed her as too young and too outspoken. Born and raised in New Hampshire, she'd seen the toll of globalist policies on working families and decided to fight for change. What made Leavitt dangerous wasn't just her politics. It was her competence. She knew her facts, had done her homework, and refused to be intimidated by condescension. This moment wasn't just two people trading insults. It was a battle over who defines conservatism today. Gutfeld's comment was more than personal. It was political. The same dismissal establishment figures used to silence anyone challenging their hold on the movement. For Leavitt, this was everything she'd fought against. The assumption she didn't belong, that her ideas weren't valid, that her presence was illegitimate. She knew millions watched, especially young conservatives wondering if there was still space for them in politics. How she handled this would send a message: stay silent or fight back with intelligence and dignity. The audience mirrored deep divides. Gutfeld's fans wanted him to embarrass Leavitt and prove her out of touch. Others hoped she'd stand tall. Proving respect and preparation beat privilege and platform. The studio was electric. This was no ordinary interview. The cameras rolled, social media buzzed, and two visions of conservatism collided live. Then Leavitt delivered her knockout. "Greg," she said, holding up the paper like a scalpel, "when you tell people to go back, you make some assumptions, that I'm less American than you, that my America First values aren't conservative, that my fight for working families isn't real patriotism." Gutfeld tried to interrupt, but she pressed on with the precision of a seasoned debater. "Here's what's really interesting. Your great-grandfather immigrated to America in 1923. You're a third-generation American. Meanwhile, my family's been here in New Hampshire since the 1840s. The audience was silent. Even Gutfeld's usual panelists seemed stunned. "So if we're playing the go back where you came from game," Leavitt continued, voice growing stronger, "technically, you should be heading back to Eastern Europe long before I should." She paused, then added, "But I don't think you should go anywhere, because that's not what America is about." Gutfeld finally spoke, voice cracking. "That's not what I meant. I was talking about values." The classic deflection fell flat against Leavitt's careful prep. "Oh, you want to talk values?" Her eyes sparkled. "Let's talk about respect, treating people with dignity regardless of age, doing your homework before trying to humiliate someone on live TV, understanding that being American isn't about how long your family's been here, it's about fighting for the principles this country was founded on." She pulled out another document. Gutfeld's face went pale. "I looked into your show's content over the past year. Do you know how many times you told younger conservatives to go back where they came from? 23 times. Every single target under 35. The future of this movement. The room was electric. Social media exploded. Leavitt destroys Gutfeld was trending worldwide. Conservative Twitter was in meltdown. But Leavitt wasn't done. The saddest part? Greg, we actually agree on some things. We both want a strong America, opportunity for working families, and a future where hard work pays off. But instead of, to everyone out there who's ever been told they don't belong, who's ever been told to go back where they came from, who's ever been made to feel like their voice doesn't matter, this is your moment too. We belong here. Our ideas matter, our voices count, and we're not going anywhere. The applause began quietly, a few scattered claps from the audience, but it quickly grew until most of the studio was on their feet. Even some of Gutfeld's own supporters seemed visibly moved by the power of her words. This wasn't just another scripted political showdown. This was real emotion, real leadership. But Levit had one more card to play. As the clapping subsided, she smiled that same calm, confident smile that had started the whole exchange. "Oh, and Greg," she said, "one more thing. That genealogy research I mentioned? It uncovered something else about your family history. But I think I'll save that for another time. Unless, of course, you want to have a real conversation about what it means to be conservative, about what it means to fight for America. I'm always open to that discussion." The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Levit had more ammo, and she wasn't afraid to use it if Gutfeld pushed further. The hunter had become the hunted, and everyone in the room felt the shift in power. The moment that would define their careers came when Gutfeld, clearly rattled and struggling to regain control, tried one last, desperate move. "Well, Congresswoman, I think our viewers can see exactly what kind of politician you are. This is typical Washington spin. You can't handle a simple question without turning it into some kind of victim narrative." His words barely hung in the air before Leavitt struck like a grandmaster delivering checkmate. "A simple question, Greg? You told me to go back where I came from. But let me tell your viewers something you clearly don't know about me. Something you would have known if you'd done any research before trying to embarrass me on national TV." She stood, a deliberate power move that shifted the dynamics instantly. Suddenly, she was looking down on Gutfeld, who remained seated, slouched behind his desk like a scolded child. "I'm not just a congresswoman, Greg. I'm a former communications director who spent years fighting for conservative candidates. I'm the daughter of a small business owner who built their success through hard work and grit. I'm a product of New Hampshire public schools who earned my place through merit and dedication. And yes, I'm a young conservative who refuses to be silenced by establishment gatekeepers masquerading as political commentators." The camera caught the stark contrast. Levit standing tall, confident, commanding, while Gutfeld slumped, his usual smirk replaced by discomfort and surprise at being outplayed. But the real lesson was still coming. Levit pulled out her phone with dramatic flair. "While you were preparing to attack my character and question my conservatism, I was actually doing something productive. Working with fellow America First representatives in Congress and state legislatures on legislation that puts American workers first, legislation supported by union leaders, business owners, and working families nationwide." She raised the phone, displaying text messages. "I actually got a message just before coming on your show from Congressman Jim Jordan. Not exactly establishment, is he, Greg? Telling me our America First agenda has the support to pass. So while you're busy playing establishment politics for your viewers, I'm getting things done for the American people." The studio fell silent. Even mentioning Jim Jordan, a conservative heavyweight, was a masterstroke. Levit wasn't just defending herself, she was proving she could govern better than Gutfeld could commentate. Gutfeld made one last feeble attempt to salvage the mess. "Well, that's great, but I still think—" Levit cut him off with a polite but deadly gesture. "Greg, I'm going to stop you there because your viewers deserve to know something else. Earlier, I mentioned that genealogy research I did on your family. Turns out your great-grandfather didn't just immigrate to America in 1923. He was fleeing Eastern Europe because he was wanted by authorities. Let's just say there were some questionable business practices involved." Color drained from Gutfeld's face. Levit's research wasn't just immigration dates. She dug deep, enough to uncover family secrets Gutfeld probably hoped would stay buried. "Now, I'm not going to embarrass you by going into the details," she said, magnanimous but firm. "Unlike some people, I believe in treating others with dignity and respect. But if we're going to judge people by their family history, if we're going to question their right to be here based on their background, maybe we should all be very careful throwing stones in glass houses." The audience was hooked. This wasn't a political interview anymore. It was a masterclass in standing up to establishment bullies, fighting back against ageism, and turning defense into offense. Social media went wild. Levit Masterclass trended, alongside Naskacher Gutfeld destroyed, and clips were shared by everyone from Donald Trump Jr. to conservative commentators quietly admiring Levit's tactical brilliance. Gutfeld's panelists, usually quick to jump in support, sat stunned. Their host, the master of gotcha questions, had walked into an ambush of his own and was losing badly. But the most important thing, Levit said softly as she prepared to land the final blow, it's not your family history, Greg. It's not even your comments tonight. It's the choice you're making right now. You can double down on establishment gatekeeping and disrespect, or you can choose to be better. You can choose real conversations about real issues instead of cheap shots and dismissive ageism. She sat back down, but still seemed to tower over him. The America First legislation I mentioned, it will bring manufacturing jobs back, secure our borders, and put American workers first, all while maintaining our strength on the world stage. That's the conversation America needs. The pause that followed was perhaps the most powerful moment of the night. Levit had offered Gutfeld a chance to salvage grace, to learn. The studio held its breath. Social media exploded. Political. Reporters rushed to cover the night. A young congresswoman from New Hampshire took apart one of Fox News' biggest stars live on air. Gutfeld looked around, back at Levit, then down at his desk. For a moment, it seemed he might accept her olive branch. But then his training took over. The training to never show weakness, never back down, never let a younger politician get the last word. Well, he said, voice lacking conviction, I think our viewers can judge for themselves who's really interested in solutions and who's grandstanding. It was the wrong choice. Everyone knew it instantly. Even his most loyal fans could see he'd been outclassed, outprepared, outmaneuvered by someone who did her homework while he relied on lazy stereotypes and establishment talking points. Levit smiled, not triumphant, but with a touch of sadness. I think they can too, Greg, and I think they just did. The aftermath began even before the show ended. Social media exploded. Levit destroys Gutfeld became the #1 trending topic worldwide. Clips went viral, shared millions of times. Establishment. Commentators scrambled to defend Gutfeld's "go back where you came from" comment, though many privately admitted he'd been completely outmaneuvered. America First politicians and activists hailed Levit's performance as a perfect example of how to fight establishment gatekeeping with facts, preparation, and dignity. Unexpectedly, conservative senators who rarely agreed with Levit praised her professionalism. Senator Ted Cruz tweeted that regardless of generational differences, telling someone to go back where they came from has no place in conservative discourse. Even some Fox News personalities seemed uncomfortable with Gutfeld's approach. Meanwhile, the America First legislation Levit championed became an overnight sensation. Bills stalled for months suddenly got national attention. Levit's ability to turn an ageist attack into a policy discussion was hailed as a political communication masterclass. Within 48 hours, 3 more conservative representatives co-sponsored the legislation, pushing it to near certain passage. 4. Gutfeld, the fallout was complicated. His show's ratings rose short-term as viewers tuned in to see his reaction to the viral showdown. But the audience shifted. Loyal establishment viewers stayed, but he lost many younger conservatives and America First supporters offended by his comments. He became a liability for Fox News executives already dealing with controversies and generational audience shifts. Meanwhile, the genealogy research Levit unearthed became its own story. Investigative reporters dug deeper and, while finding no crimes, uncovered contradictions between Gutfeld's anti-populist rhetoric and his family background. His great-grandfather's flight from Europe amid questionable circumstances became a symbol of the hypocrisy many saw in establishment rhetoric from immigrant-descended elites. More importantly, Levit's response sparked a wider conversation about ageism in conservative media. Journalism schools used the exchange as a case study, both in what not to do and how to respond to discrimination. Go Back Where You Came From was officially added to style guides as unacceptable language for professionals. Levit's career soared. Donations to her campaign surged 400% within a week. Speaking invitations flooded in, from universities, conservative groups, even some establishment organizations eager to hear her America First perspective. Her stalled legislation was fast-tracked and passed with overwhelming conservative support. 3 months later, wait for next part.